All right. So we've had a great start to the day. We're wrapping up the healthcare track. We heard the NERSA CEO Curtis speak about the American dream, AI, and doing pre-mortems when planning in times of uncertainty. I thought that was a great idea. The TNAA the Chief Operating Officer, Gene, spoke about peeling the layers of the onion to understand the true motivations of all stakeholders when you're building your technology, your product. The Care VP of Product, Lindsay, just shared some incredible data about the Care Force and the urgency of preparing for the silver tsunami, as she called it. Fantastic set of talks to start the morning. And now let me kick off the light industrial track. That's our next four talks. I want to welcome the international man of mystery, from statistical arbitrage in global financial markets to transforming how temporary workers get booked in the UK last minute, like in Uber, is what he said when the first time I met him. He then brought the model to the US inside the largest job site of the country. His vision and courage are only matched by his radical candor and execution efficiency. Please welcome Indeed Flex CEO, Novo Constare.
Thank you for having me, Cash App, and for the wonderful intro. I don't think I deserve that, but I will take it. Let me share my screen. I'm going to do the token post-COVID. Can you see my screen? Awesome. Cool. Hi, everyone. Again, thank you, Cash, for inviting me to the Shift Summit. My name is Novo Constare. I am the CEO of Indeed Flex and the VP of Staffing Solutions at Indeed. For those that know, I co-founded a business called Sift, which was acquired by Indeed in 2019 and pivoted to become Indeed Flex, where we launched in the UK and US our online temporary staffing platform for hospitality workers and light industrial workers alike. Today, I'm going to talk about how workforce automation for deskless workers is being transformed with AI and hopefully making the outcomes for job seekers and deskless workers and the managers that look after them more efficient and better. I think, first of all, I think many of you on the call may know, but the deskless workforce is hugely overlooked in the modern day context. 70% of the global workforce is actually deskless, but today, they are largely overlooked and given systems and processes that are highly fragmented and tools not fit for purpose. A lot of enterprise businesses will invest in large-scale platforms like Workday, which are primarily focused on the knowledge worker, those at their desks, and not really built to deal with the flexibility of deskless work, which includes light industrial, healthcare, and hospitality. And this disconnect creates a gap between the operations and talent teams, which can fuel chaos, inefficiency, and burnout for everyone involved. And the stakes and costs are really high. 35% of managers are struggling with budget constraints in a ever-ongoing macroeconomic uncertainty. Businesses are holding budgets very tight and basically asking everyone to do more with less. And for those in the deskless work world, it's even more complicated by the fact that, on average, enterprise businesses are operating anywhere between up to 200 different tools and systems to look after these teams. And it's leading to nearly a third of these managers are citing issues around compliance, admin complexities. And the end result we're seeing in deskless workers versus office-based workers is a much, much higher turnover rate of 1.6x. And so what can employers do about these challenges? And not really much of a spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about how AI can support the managers and the workers in deskless work. But many of you might have seen the MIT report that came out a while ago that showed, despite the intent, we're seeing that 95% of all generative AI pilots that were launched in a bunch of companies monitored by MIT led to failure. And this was a headline-grabbing market movement study that came out. And whilst it was slightly flawed in how it assessed what success looked like, focusing solely on EBITDA improvements over a short space in time, it missed things like potential productivity gains or customer service improvement that led to better satisfaction. The reality of it was very clear. Despite the intent, despite potential the capabilities of AI, the overall success was very mixed and leaned towards failure more than anything else. But what it did show, despite potentially the flawed reporting, was intention of execution is super key. Where it did see successes in its study was where there was very deliberate implementation of AI versus potentially a bunch of CEOs like myself, maybe on this call, getting caught up in the AI hype cycle and just saying, we must use AI at all costs without any real intention of how to apply it. In Flex, we've been through that journey ourselves where we've applied it where it hasn't worked as effectively, but we have found very specific areas where it has been successful, and I'm going to talk about a couple of those today. If you look across the entire HR spectrum, there's a huge breadth of opportunities of where AI can be applied, from recruitment and hiring to workforce planning, all the way through to learning development amongst your teams. But what we found at Indeed was the largest cost and what was the lowest hanging fruit was in the recruitment and hiring process. If you remember, I referenced earlier on about the challenges around this workforce and the high turnover. It means that high turnover leads to more recruitment and hiring needed. And if it's an inefficient process, there's a lot of cost that's coming out the back of it. Today, these are some statistics for you to look over. 530 hours are spent per year sitting through resumes and conducting interviews just for 10 hires on average. And we spend all that time reviewing candidates and trying to hire them, whilst openly admitting that 2/3 of us are biased in our hiring decisions, which can lead to very bad hiring decisions. And the average cost of a hire, or bad hire rather, can be upwards of 30% of your salary. And that doesn't even take into account the indirect costs, which could triple that actual cost of a bad hire. And you got to think, what is the basis for this hidden cost of hiring that is only amplified by a high turnover element like Deskless working? These bad hiring decisions are leading to increased turnover, low team morale, lost productivity, high recruitment costs, and reputation damage, which is a vicious cycle that continues over and over again. And so why is this happening? Let's start with the resume. I would say 99% of all recruitment and hiring starts at the resume. The 2-page or a 1-page that assesses the experience and capabilities of how the candidate represents himself suitable for a certain job. The problem with it is we don't always tell the truth. I say we because I've exaggerated myself of my own capabilities and responsibilities of what I can do. 70% of us openly admit to lying on their resumes, and I imagine the 30% who didn't admit to it probably lie the most. And so the process around how we hire the right people starts off most likely on a lie. And then our approach to try and resolve that is thinking we are great lie detectors, and we conduct an interview. We conduct the interview to understand, is this candidate right for this role? And in Deskless working and light industrial, we have thousands and thousands of interviews that we go through to try and get the right candidates for the role. Problem is, that same study that told us that people lie in their resumes showed that 80% of people admit to lying in their interview. So it's a lie upon a lie. And so we're really relying on the human ability to assess these liars amongst ourselves. And forget trying to understand the capabilities of the candidate. It's also not a great process for the job seeker, particularly in light industrial, where a lot of people, if they're seeking extra work to try and get more money, it's hard for them to engage in the recruitment process because the interview process takes them away from their work. The multiple in-person interviews makes it hard for them to transition into different roles quickly. And ultimately, the lengthy, repetitive process can bring out a lot of fatigue, and it risks potentially losing out on the best candidates who want to find the path of least resistance to their next role. And we put them through that journey whilst also being very bad at interviewing people. Job-related interviews have proven to be 22% less effective than a situational interview where you can potentially observe how someone is working. But only certain roles and in certain situations can you effectively scale or do situational interviews. And so we rely very heavily on interviewing someone on the basis of their resume. And it's not just interviewing people for a job where we as humans struggle to assess a candidate's potential behavior. There have been other studies in other arenas that show that humans, generally speaking, are very bad at utilizing a one-on-one conversation to assess or predict future behavior. Two cited studies are one around criminal behavior, where over 500,000 cases were given to an AI algorithm and to a bunch of judges to assess which of these criminals are more likely to repeat their behavior. And the AI outperformed these judges by 25% in predicting repeated criminal bad activity. Similarly, a similar study done with a bunch of professors and students in their classes where they were assessing students based on previous work and an interview to work out whether those students would be successful over time. And they fed algorithms with just the basis of the information of what students had done historically and found that Algorithms did a better job than professors in judging the outcomes of their students by 78% of the time. And so, in short, the process of recruitment is broken in so many different ways, from the resume built on lies to the interview compounding those lies to us as humans being very poor at interviewing people. And now I imagine many of you expect me to say the answer is AI and strip out the human from the interview process. But actually, what we found at Indeed is something very different. We found that AI plus human decision matched candidates lead to 12x more likely to be hired in the recruitment process. We found matching human decision making with AI was a far better outcome than just leveraging AI on its own. And so this has helped us reinforce our values of making hiring simpler, faster, and more human, even as we introduce more AI into the process. And at Indeed Flex, we've leaned aggressively into this. We launched our own AI interview platform, and that allows us to drive fair and bias-free hiring, faster and smarter hiring, so making it more available to candidates 24/7 so they can interview any given time. And if you remember the challenge that candidates faced of not being able to maybe engage in the recruitment process as effectively as they'd like because interviews take them away from their job or they're only available while they're working, and we coupled it with human verified elements as well. And the end results for us have been staggering. We've been able to scale our recruitment by over 6x with zero impact in quality. And that's just through our V1 implementation of the AI interview. Another area where we've learned that AI is transforming AI and where AI is transforming HR and where we've been deliberate in the opportunity of having impact is in workforce planning. So once you've hired these workers, you bring them into your ecosystem with fragmented tools, the systems that we have in place for a lot of the businesses are very broken. And it leads to like these four critical areas of like scheduling gaps. Desk workers' environments have a lot of last minute changes by the nature of the work that they do being on the front line. So it can lead to a lot of constant last minute shifts and it creates scheduling gaps, which are sometimes filled with agency workers or don't get filled at all. And simultaneously, if they bring in agencies, they have all these fragmented tools to manage their own workers and the agency workers, and it leads to a lot of admin and a lot of overhead, which go against their ability to manage costs effectively, where they struggle to stay on budget, struggle to forecast where their spend is going to be because they don't have full visibility of the utilization of their own internal workforce, coupled with the utilization of temporary workers as well. And overall, that lack of understanding of how to manage their workforce leads to burnout, creates low morale, and essentially reinforces the whole high turnover vicious cycle that we see in deskless working. We launched a platform called Indeed Teams, which allows customers to manage their own staffing in one simple place. So being mobile first leans into the aspect of working with deskless workers. It gives the workers the ability to manage their schedule effectively, whilst giving clients, or employers rather, the ability to have complete visibility of their workforce, agency, and their own internal workers, and giving them the reporting that they need to make the right decision making. It takes managers from working in a chaotic environment across a whole bunch of tooling and bringing it all into one centralized place, giving them the ability to be confident in their decision and strategic decision making. And I mentioned for workers, having that sort of like on the go visibility of their schedule, their earnings, being able to communicate with their managers in a more effective manner because they're not at their desk, they're not logging into Workday to submit their PTO, you name it. It's empowering the desk worker in a way that other systems don't do. However, what I just articulated isn't novel. There are a lot of workforce management systems out there that do what I just said. Where we're going one step further is that we're leveraging AI to power indie teams. So we've launched Alma, bit on the nose, AI labor management assistant, that's going to support employers in managing their desk workforce in the right way. It helps to deliver strategic insights and immediate action for managers so they can focus on the bigger picture. Here you see a demo where the manager is asking Alma that it needs extra workers, and Alma's suggesting because your internal workers are fully booked, you should leverage a temporary agency and connect into the VMS to fulfill that extra demand that's just coming your way. This allows the manager to focus on a higher level, bigger picture items versus typical phone treeing that they would do to try and fulfill that demand, calling around their own workers or calling around other agencies. But we think Alma can go one step further. We think Alma can be far more proactive in engaging managers with what they should be doing. We think Alma can reach out, understanding the patterns of the employer of when they may need extra workers. So here you see Alma recognizing that peak is approaching and it was going to draft a surge roster for them. So taking away that planning that a manager would typically do, Alma's taken on that burden and then given the customer one single strategic decision to make, create the roster for me, and therefore not having to deal with the admin and turning them from task executor to strategic decision maker. We believe AI, Alma specifically, can help power a lot of the decisions that happen within Deskless working. So it's not just about having an end-to-end platform that allows you to have visibility of your own workforce and temporary workers in one place. It's about bringing in AI intelligence to power every decision you make across that journey, helping you understand when and where to utilize your own internal workers, when and where to leverage temporary workers, what your forecasting for supply should look like, helping you draft rosters, and ultimately let you solve those last minute decisions at scale without having to do all the admin and because you have Alma in a strategic co-pilot. And so, in short, or not very short, the way we see AI's transforming the desk workforce isn't about AI coming in to replace people within the hiring manager's ecosystem. It's about empowering those people with AI to make the right decisions in a scalable manner and unburden them with the fragmented tooling and being able to bring all that information data together and have the AI tap into that to be proactive in providing the insights that enables managers to make those decisions effectively from hiring and onboarding to also managing the workers once you have them. Thank you. Cash App, I don't know if you're there.
I am. Fantastic. Thank you, Novo. AI working with humans. There you have it. Let me get with some questions here. I have a few. The first one is, even with AI and humans together, we're probably going to see a reduction in the human workforce at HQ. In your mind, how many employees, it's a very specific question, how many employees do we have at HQ per $1 million of revenue, or whichever metric you want to pick, I guess, today? And where will that be in the post-AI world, according to you?
It's a very big question. It really depends on the organization, the sort of business you're in, the sort of customers you serve, maybe the nature of the work you deal with, like how high skilled versus how frontline it is. It could vary. You could see much greater improvements, for example, in certain industries where they have it's easily automated through robotics, for example. You have a very repeatable pattern in your factory. We see a lot of progress being made in robotics. Their opportunities for those businesses are maybe a lot higher than maybe those in healthcare, which is still very much frontline patient care, where the human involvement is far greater than, say, in the warehouse. So I don't think there's any right answer. I do agree, though, not to stay on the fence, I 100% agree that we're going to see a significant increase of businesses where revenue per employee is going to scale significantly. We're already seeing it in some of the hyperscaling AI platforms that are there today, where we're seeing businesses with 20 people do 100 million ARR, but it's not a shift we haven't seen before. We saw 50, 60 years ago, the largest employers in the world were also the largest companies in the world. That has shifted quite a bit, where now it's the tech companies which have generated significant revenue per employee and become the largest companies in the world with a much lower base of total headcount. And we'll probably see another jump with that with AI. I think the exciting thing is that potentially AI has an ability to be a level setter almost, where it will allow people who maybe did not have the specific skills to go and build a business without the need to raise a whole bunch of capital. And so it may lead to a greater element of innovation. I think a great example of that, stepping out of the HR space, is like movie making. You take a script writer beforehand would have to go to a studio and pitch their script 100 times over and hope one studio will back them because they needed the production company behind it. They needed the studio to provide lighting, CGI, you name it. That writer now, potentially in 10 years' time, will have all the tools to have their creativity be put on screen without the burden of having to be cherry picked by a studio. And so it opens up the opportunity for lots of people to become those script writers and those creators, whereas beforehand it was very gated. And we can see that play out in other areas of the other sectors as well.
Got it. I am going to push you for a number 5x, 10x, 50x shift.
Picking a number would be plucking a number out of my behind, to be completely honest. It's
All
the
right.
markets are betting very high on it.
Got it.
It's going to be north of 5x, I would assume. But the
Got it.
time frame for which we get to that point is going to be very different across different industries. We're already seeing it starting
Yeah.
to play out in tech where the people are much closer to AI, and it'll probably be the enterprises that go first, and then we'll see it filter through the SMBs over time. But yeah,
Got it.
you make a pick a number, at least 5x.
Got it. Got it. I definitely want to get through at least a couple more questions before we run out of time. The next one is the first part of the question. I think we already have your answers. Are the deskless workers also going to be replaced by AI? And it's probably going to be augmented. Helping them with AI is probably what's going to happen in the near future. We spoke about AI helping humans at HQ recruiting and the managing part. Can you speak a bit more about AI helping workers on the job?
I think I can't speak too much if it's like the frontline worker in a manufacturing facility or whatnot. But I think we're going to see a lot more automation come into these factories. Everyone would have seen the announcement of Amazon recently,
Mhm.
where they're planning to
The
replace,
glasses.
yeah, north of like 600,000 people. But like yeah. I wasn't referring to that announcement, but thank you. Leading on to that, they also announced a product that's going to support their drivers to be more effective in doing deliveries. And so we're going to see a mixture of augmentation and replacement, I think. And if you go the full Elon Musk route, he thinks over time working will be optional, which begs the
Mm.
philosophical question: what is going to be the what's the word? What is going to be the economic outlook for how we have historically run the world of like I do a job to earn income and use that income to buy things to fuel the economy. If there are no jobs for anyone because AI and robotics are doing everything and working is just optional,
Yeah.
what are governments and people going to do to manage that transition? I think that's the open question. I do believe Elon in the sense that I do think at some point robotics and AI will do a lot of the work that we do today.
Mhm.
But I think where there's a lot of disagreement is the time frame and how that transition is managed.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. My next question is look, your Indeed Flex Indeed offers full-time and part-time jobs, multi-week, multi-month jobs, and Indeed Flex has more shift-based jobs. As an industry moving from longer term employment to more flex and shift-based, overlay that with this post-AI world. Do you see that shift continuing, accelerating? Where are we headed with that shift?
I think we'll see that increased shift. It's already happening today. I think more and more people are looking for opportunities to earn more with inflation than where it is and doesn't seem to be receding anytime soon. I think on the same time, employers are looking to be more flexible with how they manage their workload because they're trying to be more productive and looking for opportunities to leverage contingent labor in an effective way or make their own internal workforce operate in a more flexible manner. So I think those are the trends that we're already seeing. I think AI may support the acceleration of that. In terms of for flex, our view is that this is going to take time. Very different views, but like I think there was a Morgan Stanley study that showed that we won't see robotics replacing actual jobs in terms of global employment until about 2050. And the threat to the flexor, in particular in the industry that we serve, is the robotics coming into the warehouse and taking over that picker packer role, that warehouse operative role, that forklift driver role. And have on one end Morgan Stanley saying 2050, you have on the other end someone saying 2030. I think that's where the debate is. The answer is probably somewhere in the middle. And the hope is that governments around the world can work in a way that can support people through that transition.
Got it. And there's also internal worker pools that enterprises are creating and sometimes partnering with the flex staffing provider to do. We're going to talk about some of that in the later part of the show today. Any quick comments on it before I pose my last question to you? I do have one more I want to throw
Uh,
at you before I let you go.
we've only got 2 minutes and I talk too much, so go for it.
Got it. This is about human decision making versus machine decision making. You've been talking about AI augmenting human intelligence right now, and which also keeps the decision making with the human. Which decisions are you seeing humans hand off to AI already? And at what point does it get full self-drive mode, if you will, in the industry?
In the industry today, what we are seeing and what we are doing, we are allowing AI to basically screen the candidates and give like a ranking, a pre-score, a summary, and then we're leveraging humans to review, assess, and ratify or change that decision. And it isn't what we're experiencing internally isn't like a pass-through, it isn't a rubber stamp. We're seeing humans making changes a lot of the time based on what the AI is suggesting, i.e., disagreeing with the AI. So, like, over time, do we think the AI would become better and better? Yes. But what we're seeing is giving it that full overall decision, hiring decision outcome, we think right now is not would not lead to good outcomes for various reasons, whether it be AI's inability to understand different contexts or different nomenclature for how someone would describe the way they work, because they use different language in their backgrounds from when they worked in India and now they're in the UK and they describe picker packing in a slightly different way. AI may not be effective at understanding the differences or nuances in terminology there, and therefore may score a candidate lower versus another. There are these things which I think the AI has to work through, and we have to work through to make our AI better, but we're nowhere near that point of saying, oh, AI can make the hiring decision. We can have AI give a summary, give an understanding, and leverage an expert human to almost stress test that work. A bit how anyone who engages with ChatGPT today, you have the conversation back and forth, but you don't just take what it says verbatim because there's a lot of hallucinations that still are out there.
There you have it. Novo Constare, indeed, Flex CEO. Thank you very much, Novo.
Thank you for having me.
Please join me in the next session by the Traba CEO, Mike Shabat, how to build a culture for hypergrowth and excellence in the staffing industry. Thanks again, Novo.